There's a lot going on here in the Portland metro area. But what about beyond the Portland metro area? What's going on in more rural environments? How are folks making a difference and impacting with the very, very different challenges that exist there? We have some presenters coming your way next who are going to help us see some of those differences and how they approach them. Trista Budin is a substance use disorder counselor and recovery ally team lead for Clatsop Behavioral Healthcare on the coast in Astoria, Oregon. Trista was born and raised there in Astoria, where she's lived a life of active addiction and found her path to recovery in June of 2016. She started at Clatsop Behavioral Healthcare in January 2019 as a certified recovery mentor and helped shape the Recovery Ally program that is being presented today. We're extremely fortunate to have Trista Budin with us. Trista?
Thank you, Paul. Like Paul said, my name is Trista Budin. I am a substance use disorder counselor and recovery ally team lead for Clatsop Behavioral Healthcare in Astoria. I started at Clatsop Behavioral Healthcare in 2019 as a certified recovery mentor doing the Recovery Ally peer support. As you can see on the screen, my work email is there as well as my work cell phone, and then referrals for Clatsop Behavioral Healthcare, or for those who live in Clatsop County, can go to the referral email address below. So I want to talk a little bit about what peer mentors are. Peer mentors are individuals with that lived experience in both active addiction and that have found their own path of recovery. We are certified through MACBO, which is the Mental Health and Addiction Certification Board of Oregon. Through some education and some trainings, we do get certified. We get ongoing education through trainings and structured supervision, as well as each individual experience with each individual client. Peer work is so different because every person we meet has a different story and a different past and a different path of recovery that we have to identify and work toward. Peer mentors have their own strong personal program of recovery. Because we're surrounded by so much trauma and so much of people in active addiction, and those may be intoxicated while we work with them, it's really important to have a really strong personal program of recovery. We are compassionate people, relentlessly compassionate. We're caring, warm and kind, patient, understanding. We are not judgmental. We speak in a very motivating fashion. We're open and honest and transparent with what's happening or what the next steps are. And we gain that trust by being very consistent and continuing to show up for individuals, because we understand that people may have some systematic trauma when it comes to trying to find treatment in the past. So the more we show up and follow through with the things that we say we're going to do, the more trust that we gain. And that's a really important part of peer work. We use a trauma-informed approach and really person-centered language because of that systematic trauma that people may have experienced in the past. We want them to understand that we don't judge them and we have no expectations, and no matter what, we're still going to show up. Preferably, peers have some knowledge of recovery programs in the community. It's not mandatory by any means, because we can find that information if a new peer is new to the area. But we do have a list of in-person and online recovery support programs. Having some knowledge of resources in the area is very important as well. It's really important to know where the DHS welfare office is and where you can get on maybe some SNAP benefits, or know where the community action office is to try and sign up for some affordable housing. And peers may have that additional lived experience with the criminal justice system, jail or prison, DHS child welfare, domestic or sexual violence, mental health, homelessness. They may have experience in 12-step recovery programs. They may have experienced their own overdoses, and they may be still involved in MAT clinics. What is it that peer mentors can do? We meet with client where they're at, and that means a couple different things. We meet with them where they're at in a physical sense, whether it be in jail for the 16th time on a probation violation for being under the influence. It could be in the emergency department for the 5th or 6th time because they keep on detoxing, or they can't get that drink in the morning because they ran out of money. It could be under the bridge where they live and they just need someone to be there with them while they're experiencing what they're experiencing, and we need to offer that support to them. We meet them where they're at in terms of where they're at in their recovery. Are they in that pre-contemplation stage where they're not really ready to address anything in their addiction? Or are they kind of getting ready to enter into treatment and kind of prepping for that momentum of the strength that they're going to need to take this journey on? We listen to their needs. We listen to exactly it is what they want, because for a very long time as a person in recovery, I was always told what other people want and needed me to do. And I was very resistant to that. No one heard me. No one knew what I wanted. So it's very important to listen to the client's needs and then support the client's autonomy in their decisions. So what that means is we identify the paths and the possible results of each of those paths. And we give them that freedom of choice in which direction they want to go. And we support them in that direction. We assist clients in obtaining basic needs like food, shelter, and clothing, whether there be meals that happen in the community or food pantries, getting them into some sort of shelter if they do not qualify for a shelter because they're not sober. Then we try and obtain tents and sleeping bags so they're still somewhat covered from the elements outside. And then we find some clothing closets. If it obtains, we help people get those health insurance benefits, because depending on what their needs are, they might say, I want to go to detox, or I want to go to inpatient, or I need to go to the doctor. And that's very difficult to do when you don't have health insurance. And then that financial barrier really prohibits people from following through the things that they want to do. So we help them attain that health insurance. And connecting those with harm reduction supplies and providing education around safer use practices is something that we do for those who aren't really ready to commit to complete abstinence. So we provide them with those naloxone kits or the Narcan sprays, and then that education to be safer around using. There's a giant black cabinet behind me, and that is filled with over 2,500 different naloxone kits, overdose reversal medication kits. We connect clients to those detox centers when they feel like they are ready to make a change. And then we follow them and help coordinate aftercare, whether that be going into an inpatient center or going into an outpatient center. Maybe that means transitional housing for them if they don't do either of those things, but we follow them and support them through those transitions. We connect the clients to all sorts of healthcare services, whether if they identify they need primary care, or if they need dental care, or maybe you have a pregnant client who needs OBGYN care or prenatal care. We connect clients to all sorts of different types of healthcare. We also connect them with community recovery programs, whether that be AA, NA, HA, or DDA, or maybe SMART or Celebrate Recovery if they're not a big fan of those 12-step programs. And that could be both in-person and online resources. And we can go to those recovery activities with them. We can go with them to an AA meeting and introduce them to people in the community that can help support them better. We can connect them to community resources and community partners. What that means is we can connect them with the people that can help them obtain SNAP benefits, or connect them to the people that will walk them through the housing lists, or maybe they have some mental health struggles that they need to address. So maybe we can get them connected to NAMI, which is the National Alliance of Mental Illness. We can get them connected to those resources. And like I said, we support those clients through those transitions, like it be from unsheltered to sheltered, because that's a whole different world. When someone's so used to being homeless, being sheltered might be a really intimidating thought. So getting them ready and transitioning through that, or if they're discharging from a hospital, a detox, or being released from jail, what are the next steps for those folks? What do we do? How do we help them through those transitions? We support them through all of those. We identify and make plans to overcome barriers that may come up. And we can promote self-efficacy, and we do that by walking alongside the client and going through all of these different transitions with them by their side to ensure that they know how to do it. So if they ever get presented with something that they need to try this again, they have that knowledge and that ability of how to access those resources. We motivate the clients to just keep going, because this is a battle. There's no end goal when it comes to finding recovery. If you achieve recovery, you got to maintain your recovery, and that's a whole nother ball game. It takes a whole nother, a whole bunch more motivation. And then advocacy, because sometimes we understand that they might not be top of the list, but it's really like we advocate for our clients to make sure that they obtain the resources that they need. Some common community partners that we work with are hospitals and primary care, and that could be people coming in and out of the emergency room. That could be people who may have overdosed and are on the critical care unit. This could be primary care where clients continue to show up to primary care intoxicated. We can receive referrals from those agencies and then intervene or intercept the client and really start having that discussion about what's really going on. Jails, probations, and patrol officers, we get referrals from all of those folks as well, whether it be people going in and out of the jail system, like I said, for probation violations or possession of narcotics, or if they're on probation and mandated to treatment. We can really help bridge that gap to getting them started and maintaining their enrollment in treatment to achieve that thing that the probation officer is looking for. Justice system specialty courts like mental health treatment court and drug court. We can really support those clients as well as they're navigating that process and trying to stay in compliance with everything that everyone else needs them to do, and really trying to motivate them and let them know that this is just a stepping stone and it can really be a good support to build a really great foundation for recovery. We work with transitional housing agencies and warming centers, getting people into transitional housing agencies and warming centers, and then getting referrals from those agencies when people continue to use. We can try and intercept and intervene and save the housing for them by trying to help them achieve that sobriety and supporting them through that. Community action teams. We work with them as well, and that would be like your local community action team. We have Clatsop Community Action here, who can help with VA benefits, housing, and just really anything else that we work with them. They can refer to us and we can refer back to them. We work with our community crisis team. Clatsop Behavioral Healthcare is the community mental health provider for our county. So we have our own crisis team. So if somebody presents in a crisis and it's mainly substance related, they can refer out to the Recovery Ally team, and we can work with those clients and help them identify what it is that they're really looking for in life and help them achieve that. We also get referrals from affected friends and family members of the person who's using. It could be a mom calling saying, I really don't know what to do with my son. He's gonna die if he keeps going this way. Then we can go out and meet with that person and really try and figure out what the next steps are. We work with DHS Child Welfare and the Addictions Recovery Teams, which is the DHS liaison for parents who've been identified with substance use problems. We can really work with them and identify a really great plan to hopefully get their children back in the end and reunify the family and achieving that through sobriety and stabilization in the community. We get referrals from other mental health, alcohol and drug agencies, services, or clinicians. So what that means is we can work with you even if you don't want to work with Clatsop Behavioral Healthcare. You don't have to be a client of Clatsop Behavioral Healthcare to receive our support. We will support you if you would choose to attend other treatment agencies, or if you need to find a treatment agency and you don't want to come to us, that's absolutely okay. We will still help you navigate what those options are and choose the one that fits best for them. And we also work with domestic violence and sexual violence survivor advocate agencies. We actually get a lot of referrals from them, and we can really work very closely with those folks. And we also refer to the advocate agencies for those who are struggling with substances that come to us that identify that they live in a very unsafe situation. We can help get them removed from that situation rather quickly. So with all of this, what makes peers different? Again, I mentioned that relentlessly compassionate support that we give. We keep showing up time after time after time with absolutely no expectations of the client. We don't put stipulations on our support, and we don't, and the thought isn't, okay, the Recovery Allies are here, now it's time to get sober. That's not a reality. The reality is we need to find out what will work for that person and then work with them and guide them and support them through their decisions. We are a non-structured, non-authoritative support. We're not going to tell on you If you tell us that you were using, or that you slipped, or that you had a reoccurrence in use. We're not clinical staff by any means. The Recovery Allies are not clinical staff by any means. So there is really that strong bond of trust. We can roll with the resistance for those who aren't treatment ready. And what that means, I spoke about it a little bit more, of that systematic trauma. Some people aren't ready to walk back in the doors of an outpatient center, or someone may have had a really traumatic experience in an inpatient center and they're not quite ready to do that again. So we really try to support them on a community basis of like getting them connected with those recovery supports that can help them without being in one of those inpatient services. And we sometimes work harder than the clients do. We call on their behalf. We advocate for them. We continue showing up, even if they tell us, I don't want to see you today, call me next week. We will wait and we'll call them next week. There are no prerequisites for peer support aside from having struggles with substances. So that does not mean that really means that all you need to do is struggle with substances to work with a peer. You don't have to fill out any paperwork, sit through an assessment, or have a diagnosis to meet with a peer. This could be a strictly non-clinical peer support, meaning that we meet with you in the community and help support you the way you want to be supported. Peers make a difference because you get to connect with those who've had those shared experiences. There's a level of understanding when it comes to peers, because I know that when I was in my active addiction, when someone in a white coat in a doctor's office told me that they knew exactly how I felt, I didn't believe them, and it didn't feel real, and it was really painful. So having that peer say, I know where you've been, because we do a little bit of that self-disclosure. Like myself, I've been in recovery since June 19th, 2016. My substances of choice were alcohol and cocaine. And I remember being completely hopeless and struggling deeply. And having someone say, you don't have to live like that anymore, it can be different, here's how I did it, was the biggest motivating factor for me, because that person was standing right in front of me saying, I'm not in that place anymore, and here's how I got out of it. And it was very moving. And that's what we do. We instill hope for those who feel like they don't have any left. It's a connection to someone who can help bridge the gap in between existing infrastructures to clients. What does that mean? That means that getting engaged in any sort of resources has some sort of process, that if someone who's never done it before may not know what that process is and may begin to get frustrated that getting these services is too hard, and that in itself is a barrier. Sometimes resources make their own barriers by making their intakes a little too difficult. So we can really walk them through that to make sure that they know that they're not alone when trying to access these things, when they finally make that decision that it's time to do something different. And we promote that self-efficacy. Like I said, we really try to show them how it's done and walk through it with them so they know exactly how to do it next time. And we help build and validate that client's self-esteem and self-worth and self-love. And we do that by the guidance, support, and direct help with setting small, achievable goals. Those small, achievable goals mean a lot when you feel like you're a failure because you can't stop using. Achieving a goal is a big, uplifting thing. So we really try and set those small goals. One-on-one navigation around barriers. What that means is that, here's an example. A gentleman walked into our office. He had just moved to the area. He had Washington Apple insurance, and he wanted to get on the MAP program. Couple different barriers right there. He has Washington Apple insurance. We accept the Oregon Health Plan and MODA. He wanted the MAP program. He was in the wrong area. Our MAP program office is in Warrenton. He wasn't even at the right office. So what happens? Does that person turn around, walk away, and just feel like everything is hopeless? We had a peer on site who asked him, hey, sir, do you plan on staying in Oregon? Yes, I plan on staying in Oregon. I'm not going back to Washington. Great. So what they did is they canceled the Washington insurance. They got on the Oregon Health Plan, and then they were set clear, small steps on how to get an assessment done for the MAT program. And that person had an assessment that same day, and then saw the doctor to get on medication the next day for his opioid use disorder. And that's a beautiful example of how peers can really help navigate some of these barriers. Support with maintaining motivation, because every single time we come across a barrier, it can feel like the end of the world when we're really just trying to hang on. And we really tend to give up often. I mean, I remember from myself, every time I ran into a barrier, I just wanted to throw my hands up and be like, I might as well just go back to using this. Is too hard. So we really try to support and maintain that motivation that if we just keep going or try this one more thing, that it might make a difference. And then instilling the hope in those who feel like they're in a hopeless situation. Um, you know, I realized that I am doing the right thing in the right place, in the right career, when I was looking for a client. Is July of 2019. And I was looking for a specific client. I didn't find him, but I did see a very older gentleman laying on the ground behind a porta potty. And from a distance, he was shaking so bad, I thought he was in a full-blown seizure. So I went up to him and I said, what is going on? Do you need an ambulance? And he said, yes, I need an ambulance. And so I called the ambulance for him. And while we were waiting on the ambulance, I said, do you need to go to detox? And he said, yes. So we did a detox screening call while we waited for the ambulance. And what that means is I sat there on the ground and I held this man's hand and I held the phone to his ear because he couldn't hold it. And he did the screening call. And then I followed behind the ambulance in my vehicle and I walked right into that hospital like that's where I belonged, right by his side. And when the nurse asked him, what's going to be different this time, because this is the 4th time he's been here this week, I let her know that we were going a different path and that he needs to hang out until his ride care shows up to take him down to detox. That gentleman finished detox and then we got him into a transitional housing center, and it took him a month before he got out of a wheelchair because he couldn't walk. And after that month, he transitioned to a walker. And another month after that, he transitioned to a cane. And after a year of sobriety, that man is out riding his bike around town. And I knew when I saw him without his cane that this work is special, and it takes a lot to do, and it's hard sometimes, and it's heartbreaking sometimes, but there are those little things that just make you say, I'm in the right place and I'm doing the right thing. I really appreciate everyone's time listening to my presentation, and if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box, and thank you.